Tron is one of those movies that were mostly a product of their time. A time when nerd culture was something completely different from what it is these days. A time when the public eye viewed computer nerds as the wizards of the digital age. Everyone could see the coming of the computer revolution, and most of us viewed it with optimism. You see, back then we had completely different visions of what the future would be like. Many films, books, and all kinds of entertainment products envisioned that, by now, well, we would be living in the space age. Well, I can assure you that nobody imagined that we would actually be living in a digital oppression regime like the one we have at the moment, where everyone thinks twice before expressing a dissenting opinion of any type on a social platform for fear of demonetization, shadow banning, or what have you. Tron Legacy is also a product of its time. A time when film studios raised the dead, rotten corpses of forgotten classics and cult classics, dressed them up with a modern coat of paint, and then pushed them onto the market. What they forgot to do was instill them with a soul, which is why most of these modern reboots feel empty, like something is missing. Tron Legacy is a good example, as it, ironically, kinda pissed on its legacy. And then we have this. The movie tie-in game, Tron Evolution, a game with a subtitle so misleading it could be like modern feminists saying they care about equality. Tron Evolution is actually a prequel to Tron Legacy, Tron Legacy being the official sequel to the original Tron. I think that makes Tron Evolution and Interquel, is that how they're called? Anyway, story goes that inside the grid, Kevin Flynn saw the birth of ISOs as a miracle, and wished to protect and propagate them, as they were vastly different from, and more advanced than, regular programs. Things, however, go awry, and corruption starts spreading through the grid. That's where you come in. You play the role of a system monitor program, and your task is to put a stop to all this mayhem. So, how does this game tie into the film? Well, you get to see how Clue got to power, and you get to help a digital hottie Quora, who looks real ugly in the game, unfortunately. The game itself seems quite faithful to Tron Legacy, as it emulates the look of the film pretty faithfully. I personally liked the visual theme of the film, with its glossy blacks and whites and a general smooth, futuristic look, and all that is carried over to the game itself very well. Music is decent too, and the controls do their job, they work. The problem begins with the game itself. The core of Tron Evolution, despite the subtitle, is not an evolution of anything. In fact, it's a devolved version of what lies at the core of the Prince of Persia: The Sands of Time trilogy of games, with your character jumping around with relative grace, fighting enemies, wall running, and doing all sorts of acrobatic stuff. For example, to replenish your life, you will have to wall run across power nodes. These are plastered usually across walls or vertically across columns in the game. You can also gain extra abilities, which are mainly used in combat. You can upgrade these using pickups you find while playing. But wait, that sounds quite good, I hear you say. Sure, it does sound pretty good, but I'm not finished. Now, the Sands of Time trilogy of games were magical, but that wasn't because of mechanics. Not only because of mechanics. You see, despite what some people say, gameplay is not king. It goes hand in hand with the world building. And that is where Tron Evolution fails. The presentation of the game is there, but what worked for a film that lasts, give or take, 2 hours, is not good enough for a game. And even though the developers tried to make things varied and interesting, yeah, in the end you will tire of seeing the same 3 colors throughout the entirety of the game. The overarching narrative, as well as the way it was told, was something interesting in Prince of Persia. However, that is not true for Tron Evolution. The characters are uninteresting, nothing feels important, and when you feel that what you're doing has no meaning, you soon start getting disconnected from a game. But sure, perhaps world building is none of your concern. All you care about is the gameplay. Even if we do compare the two games on the basis of gameplay, Tron Evolution is found lacking as well. The controls never feel as fluid. There is no interesting mechanic to manipulate time, so every time you misread what the game wants you to do, or you fumble with the fiddly controls, it's back to the last checkpoint for you. Which unfortunately breaks the flow, and it will keep happening. That is an issue because the flow was one of the cornerstones of Prince of Persia, and that is missing here. The combat is heavily based on the iconic discs of the films, with a lot of aerial attacks, maneuverability and jumping. Yeah, it's a decent system that works, but it never really takes off. Even when enemies are introduced who require you to use particular attacks to even damage them. On the contrary, it does get tiring as the game goes on, and it's almost as bad as in Sands of Time. And even though there are some attempts to spice up the gameplay with some tank and driving sections, well, these are not enough to inject any excitement. That's a problem with the game in general. It is unexciting and it feels by the numbers. Because it is. All in all, Tron Evolution is a hollow experience. It's not a bad game, and it kept me engaged to play it through to the end, but in no way would I consider it anything above passable. It's pretty obvious this game was made targeting a release near the film's debut, so it never aspired to any kind of greatness. Yeah, there are much better ways to spend time than this. Closing, I have to say that Tron Evolution is as much of an evolution as Turok Evolution was. In any case, guys, thank you very much for watching. Do like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video, and I hope to see you next time. Till then, as always, take care.